Dusty Creek, Wyoming, 1887. Lila Hart's back hit the saloon floor so hard, the breath tore out of her chest. In a sharp, broken sound she couldn't swallow down. Men laughed, too loud, too loose, like her pain was just another cheap trick to season their whiskey. Hank Rourke's fingers clamped around her wrist, dragging her toward the back like a man hauling a busted saddle. She didn't scream. She'd learned long ago that screaming only made them smile wider. And tonight, for the first time in months, a memory she'd buried deep rose up. Her father whispering, "Don't fight back, girl. You're not meant to win." Her knees buckled when Hank yanked her upright again. The skin on her wrist burned, bone grinding against bone. 2 days with nothing but scraps had emptied her strength. Her breath came shallow, bright with panic. Hank smelled it, grinned at it, like a wolf catching blood on the wind. "Come on, sweetheart," he muttered, voice sticky with liquor. "Debt's gotta be paid." His words dripped cold down her spine. She kept her eyes on the floorboards. Dirt didn't judge. The back hallway swallowed them. Dark, close, choking. Her pulse thudded against her ribs, each beat scraping memory loose. Rough hands. A door slamming. Her father walking away. Hank shoved her against the wall. Her shoulder cracked with the hit. Air slipped past her lungs without filling them. She whispered, almost by accident, "Please." Hank leaned in, lips near her ear. "No one's coming, Lila." Her stomach dropped. Because he was right. Nobody ever came. Her fingers trembled as she pushed at his chest. Weak, useless. But that stubborn spark inside her clawed for breath. Then, bootsteps, slow, heavy, final. A broad shadow cut through the moonlight. A man stood at the mouth of the alley. Tall, shoulders squared, coat dusted from a long ride. His skin dark as the night behind him. His gaze steady, unblinking. Elijah Carter. Nobody in Dusty Creek mistook him for anything but trouble. Not because he stirred it, but because small men needed someone bigger to blame. Hank barked, "This ain't your business, Carter." Elijah didn't move, didn't raise his voice. His eyes were on Lila, and Lila felt something crack in her chest. Fear, shame, relief all tangled together. Elijah finally spoke. "That's enough." Hank laughed, sharp and ugly. "She owes. She's working it off." Elijah stepped closer. The air shifted. Something in Lila's pulse shifted with it. Hank puffed himself up. "Back off, boy." The word shattered the alley. Elijah's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Let her go." Hank shoved Lila harder, and that was it. Hank swung. Elijah didn't. He sidestepped, caught Hank's wrist, twisted. Not to break it, just enough to drop him to his knees. A heartbeat later, Hank's face hit the dirt under Elijah's boot. "Get up when you can stand like a man." Sheriff Avery stormed in with 2 men. Accusation filled the air like dust. Hank pointed at Elijah. "He jumped me, over that saloon girl." Every stare swung to Elijah, not to her, to him. Elijah stepped slightly in front of Lila, not hiding her, shielding her. Avery warned, "Don't make trouble in my town, Carter." Elijah didn't answer. He just breathed. Slow, steady. The breath of a man who's swallowed fire for far too many years. Lila's knees weakened. Elijah glanced back. Just a flicker. "You hurt?" She almost lied, but the truth escaped. "I'm tired." Something softened in him. A flicker neither of them understood. Hank staggered up. Men muttered. The alley emptied. But Elijah stayed. A wall. A question. A choice. And for the first time all night, Lila didn't feel like she was falling. Elijah didn't touch her. He simply waited, still as a post driven deep, until Lila pushed herself off the wall, legs shaking beneath her skirt. Her breathing was thin, too fast, the way a cornered animal breathes after outrunning death by an inch. She looked away from him, like eye contact itself might break her in half. "Can you walk?" he asked. She nodded. A lie, but pride was sometimes stronger than truth. Her body disagreed the second she stepped. Her knee buckled. She tipped forward. Elijah caught her elbow. Nothing more, nothing less. His hand steady, warm, firm, not claiming, not gripping, just holding her long enough for her to stand. The difference struck her harder than Hank's shove. She swallowed, throat raw. "I'm fine." "You're not." His voice didn't push, didn't demand. It was simply a fact laid down like a plank across a river, something she could choose to step on or drown beside. He let go when she regained balance, and that startled her almost as much as the touch. A man who didn't take advantage of weakness. Dusty Creek didn't breed those. Dusty Creek chewed them up before they hit 20. Hank's cursing faded as he limped back into the saloon. Sheriff Avery warned Elijah again, quiet, clipped, full of the tired disgust this town reserved for a black man who dared hold his ground. Then he left too. Silence settled. Cold wind pushed through the alley, slipping under Lila's torn blouse, making her ribs tremble. Her body was a patchwork of bruises so fresh she could feel each one blooming. "Let's get you inside," Elijah said. Lila blinked. "Inside? Where?" "You can't stay here tonight." Her heart stuttered. I'm not going anywhere with you." His jaw flexed, not with anger, with resignation. "Not asking for that," he said. "Just offering ground that won't hurt you." She studied him, the heavy coat, the work-stiffened hands, the eyes that didn't flinch from her shame. "Why?" she whispered. A muscle twitched in his cheek. He glanced toward the saloon doors, where men inside were still laughing, still spending her dignity like pocket change. "I don't like watching a woman get dragged somewhere she didn't choose," he said quietly. Choice. The word scraped something deep inside her chest, something she'd buried under years of other people deciding her worth. "My horse is around front," Elijah said. I'll take you somewhere safe for the night. Her ribs tightened. People will talk. They already do. She looked down at her hands, scratched, raw, shaking. He saw the hesitation, then added, "You'll ride in front. You hold the reins. I'm only there to keep you from falling." It was a strange kind of mercy, being given control when she had none left. After a long moment, she nodded. He didn't help her mount until she lifted her arm first. Then he placed one strong hand under her foot, guiding her up, steady, patient. The saddle felt foreign. Her body felt foreign. But the reins grounded her, and for the first time in months, a breath reached all the way into her lungs. Elijah swung up behind her, keeping just enough distance so she didn't feel cornered. "Ready?" he asked. She wasn't, but she nodded. The horse moved. Each hoofstep sent shocks through her bruised thighs, but she kept her jaw tight. She wouldn't whimper. Not tonight. They rode out of Dusty Creek, past shuttered windows, past whispered judgments that followed her like a curse. With every mile, her eyelids grew heavier, her back slumped, her grip loosened. Elijah's hand rose, hesitant, hovering near her waist. When she didn't flinch, he steadied her gently. "You're falling asleep," he murmured. She almost apologized, almost thanked him, almost cried. But exhaustion drowned the words. She drifted. In the blur of half-sleep, memory crawled up again. Her father's boots walking away as the saloon keeper counted coins, the weight of being handed over, the voice whispering she wasn't worth keeping. A tear slid down her cheek. Elijah didn't pretend not to notice. He didn't comment either. He just kept the horse moving. By the time they reached the ranch road, her body was slumped fully against him, head tipped to his shoulder, every breath shivering like glass. When the horse stopped, Elijah slid down first. Then he reached up, hands open, steady, waiting. She stared at them, patient, unafraid of her bruises. Something inside her cracked. "Why are you being kind to me?" Elijah met her eyes. "Kindness isn't what this is," he said softly. "It's respect. I don't offer it to everyone, just the ones who've had too many people take it away." Her throat tightened. He waited again, always waiting for her choice. Finally, she placed her trembling hands in his. He helped her down slow, careful with her battered ribs. "This is Cedar Ridge Ranch," he said. "You'll rest in the bunkhouse tonight. We'll talk in the morning." "And if I say no?" "Then I'll take you wherever you want to go," Elijah said simply. "But not tonight. You won't survive another hour out here." The certainty in his voice wasn't control, just truth, offered without cruelty. She exhaled, a broken sound. "All right." He nodded once, a promise without words. And for the first time since she'd been thrown into the dust behind that saloon, Lila felt something fragile take root inside her chest. Not safety, not hope, but the faint memory of what it once felt like to be human. Lila didn't sleep long. The bunkhouse cot was clean, but her body didn't know what to do with safety. Every time her breath slowed, some memory snapped her awake. Hands grabbing, boots stomping, whiskey breath laughing in her ear. By dawn, her ribs ached from curling into herself. Her throat felt scraped raw. When the door creaked open, she jolted upright, heart punching her ribs so hard it hurt. "It's just me," Elijah said quietly. He stood in the doorway holding a tin cup, steam rising from it. Coffee. The scent curled into the cold morning like a small mercy. Her fingers twitched, but she didn't reach for it. Not yet. Elijah set it on the crate beside her bed and stepped back. Palms open, distance maintained. His restraint confused her more than kindness ever could. "You eat anything yesterday?" he asked. She swallowed. Her voice cracked. "Not much." His jaw tightened. Not at her, but at the truth of it. He knelt beside the crate and pulled out a small cloth bundle. Cornbread, still warm. "Eat a little before we talk. You'll think clearer." His calmness unnerved her. Men weren't calm around girls like her. Men got impatient. Men demanded. Men took. But Elijah waited. So she picked up the bread with shaking fingers and took a small, hesitant bite. The warmth hit her stomach like pain and comfort mixed together. She blinked fast, fighting tears. Elijah looked away, giving her the privacy of grieving over a piece of bread. When she finished, he sat on the edge of a stool opposite her, far enough that she could breathe, close enough that she had to hear him. "I can't take you to any house in town," he said. "Not as things stand. And you can't go back to the saloon." Lila clenched her jaw. "I didn't ask you to take me in." "I know." His gaze held steady, firm, but never heavy. "What I'm offering," he continued, "is work, a bed, food, $20 a month. You leave when you want. No debts, no claims." Her chest tightened, cold, sharp, suspicious. "That sounds like buying," she whispered. Elijah shook his head once. "Buying is when a man expects obedience. I'm offering a job." She waited for the rest. There was always a rest, always the hidden part, always when the bargain turned ugly. "And what do you want for it?" she asked, voice splintering. "What do you think you get out of me?" Elijah didn't move, didn't blink. "Respect," he said. She stared, confused. "You do the work you're paid for," he said. "You keep your dignity. I keep mine. That's the trade." Her throat closed. She forced air through it. "Men don't talk like that." "Most men don't mean it," he replied softly. "I do." Her breath stuttered, a painful, fragile flutter. He leaned forward slightly, only slightly. "You can say no, Lila. You can walk away the moment you want to. But if you stay, understand something clearly. You're not my burden. If you come to Cedar Ridge, you come as my choice, not my charity. The words hit her harder than Hank's fists. Choice, not charity, not ownership. Something old and bruised stirred inside her. Her fingers tightened around the blanket. Why would you choose me? He didn't answer right away. He let silence speak first. Because I've seen what people do to someone alone, he said finally. And I've been alone too long myself to let it happen in front of me. Lila looked at her hands, scratched, trembling, stained from work nobody respected. Elijah, you don't know what they say about me. I know enough. You don't know what's true. He nodded slowly. Then tell me, if you want to. She couldn't. Not now. Maybe not ever. Her breath shivered. I don't want to be someone's shame. Elijah's eyes softened in a way she didn't know men could soften. You're not. Town thinks so. They think the same of me. That stunned her into stillness. He continued, voice low. People don't need truth to judge. They only need someone weaker than themselves. A memory flickered across his face. Too fast to name, too deep to fake. Lila's heartbeat eased, not into comfort, but into recognition, as if she'd spotted another wounded animal across the firelight. She nodded once, a small nod, trembling, but enough. All right, she said. I'll work. For a while. Elijah didn't smile, but relief flickered in his eyes. Soft, respectful, almost grateful, like she'd given him something, not the other way around. You'll stay in the main house, he said. There's chores to do. I'll show you the ropes. Her body tensed. I don't know much. You'll learn. A small, timid voice slipped out. And the boy? Jesse? Elijah nodded. He's wary with new folks, but he's good-hearted. Good-hearted. Another word she hadn't heard in years. Elijah stood, giving her room. Come when you're ready. Jesse's doing morning feeding. When he reached the door, she found herself whispering, Elijah. He paused. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you. He nodded once, slow, sincere. You're welcome, Lila. His footsteps faded, leaving her alone in the bunkhouse with her pounding heart and a warmth in her chest she didn't trust yet. She touched her wrist, still bruised from Hank's grip, and breathed in the scent of coffee rising from the tin cup. For the first time in a long while, the future wasn't a threat, only a question. And that was almost hope. Lila followed Elijah toward the main house with steps that felt too light and too heavy at the same time. Light because she wasn't being dragged. Heavy because she didn't know how to exist without fear holding her ribs together. Her skirt brushed her bruised shins with every step. Even that small touch stung. The cold morning air tightened the skin along her throat, where Hank's fingers had left red shadows. She kept her arms folded across her middle as if holding herself would keep her shame hidden. Elijah walked a few paces ahead, close enough to look back now and then, far enough to give her space. The way he carried himself, shoulders quiet, hands never twitching toward her, unsettled her more than danger. She knew what to do with danger. She didn't know what to do with gentleness. Inside the house, warmth breathed over her like something she didn't deserve. "You can leave your things here," Elijah said. She looked down at the tiny bundle in her hands. Nothing but a spare shirt, a comb with half its teeth missing, and a ribbon from her mother she never dared wear. These are all I have," she whispered. Elijah didn't pity her, didn't stare at the pathetic bundle. He simply nodded, accepting it without judgment. "We'll get you more once you settle." Settle. The word almost made her laugh. She hadn't settled anywhere since she was a child. Footsteps thumped on the stairs. A small figure appeared. Thin, sun-browned, hair stuck up in every direction. Jessie. He stopped when he saw her. His eyes, sharp, brown, observant, flicked from her bruised cheek to the cut on her lip, then to Elijah. Something guarded slid across his face. Elijah gave him a look. "Morning." Jessie answered without taking his eyes off Lila. "Who's she?" Lila's stomach fluttered. The same panic she'd felt when drunk men circled her, deciding what she was worth. Except this was worse. Somehow the judgment of a 10-year-old boy burned deeper. "She'll be helping around the house," Elijah replied. "And for now, she'll be staying here." Jessie's mouth pressed into a hard line. "She trouble?" Elijah didn't snap, didn't sigh. "She's someone who needs a place, same as we did." The boy's shoulders softened just a little at that. Lila forced herself to stand straighter. "I'll try not to get in your way," she murmured. Jessie blinked, surprised she'd spoken directly to him. He shrugged. "Kitchen's a mess. If you want to help, help there." It wasn't exactly a welcome, but it wasn't rejection either. Lila nodded, throat tight. "I can do that." She stepped into the kitchen, and heat washed her face, not from the stove, but from memory. Kitchens at the saloon had been battlegrounds. Men shouting, pans thrown, greedy hands grabbing her as she passed. Her heartbeat quickened. This kitchen was quiet. That scared her more. She reached for a saucepan and fumbled it. Her fingers, still stiff from cold and fear, let it slip. It hit the counter with a clatter so sharp she flinched back. Arms raised to shield her face, body braced for impact. Nothing struck her. When she dared open her eyes, Jessie was staring at her. Wide-eyed, frozen, like she'd just turned into someone else entirely. "You okay?" he asked softly. She lowered her trembling arms, heat rushing to her cheeks. "I thought it would fall on me." "It didn't." "I know." Her voice broke on the second word. Jessie didn't mock her, didn't smirk. He simply walked past and picked the pot up with both hands, setting it aside. "My ma used to drop things when she was tired," he said quietly. Elijah always said we don't yell at people for being tired. The simple sentence cracked something, open in Lila's chest. She nodded. Thank you. He shrugged again, uncomfortable with gratitude. You want to start with peeling potatoes? Less loud. A tiny, shaky smile tugged at her mouth. I can do that. She peeled slowly, awkwardly. The knife slipped once, nicking her thumb. Blood beaded. She sucked in a breath. Elijah's voice drifted in from the doorway. Cut yourself? Lila hid her hand behind her skirt. It's nothing. He didn't argue. He stepped forward, palm open. Let me see. She hesitated. Then, trusting the faintest sliver of instinct, placed her hand in his. His fingers were warm, rough with work, but gentle. He wrapped the cut with a strip of cloth like he'd done it 1,000 times. You don't have to hide pain, he murmured. Old habit, she whispered. Break it here, he said simply. Jessie watched them, expression unreadable, but not hostile. Breakfast came together slowly. Potatoes, eggs, cornbread left from yesterday. The smell filled the house. Lila tried not to stare at Elijah every time he moved. Tried not to notice how Jessie mimicked his posture without even knowing it. At the table, Jessie asked the question she feared. Why'd you let that man drag you last night? The words sliced her open. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Shame rose up her throat like smoke. Before she could crumble, Elijah cut in, voice steady. Jessie, he said, we don't ask why someone survived something. We ask what they need now. Jessie's ears reddened. Sorry, he mumbled. Lila shook her head. It's all right. He deserves an answer. She swallowed, then said quietly, I didn't let him. I just didn't have the strength left to stop him. The boy's eyes softened. Oh, not pity, understanding. Elijah met her gaze across the table. Something warm, something steady, something she hadn't felt since before her father walked her into that saloon years ago and called it a favor I'm doing for us both. She looked away before she drowned in it. After breakfast, Elijah stood, finishing his coffee with a swallow that tasted like decisions. We've got fence work and horse feeding to handle. Lila, take the day to rest. You don't have to prove anything today. Her pulse jumped. Rest? Permission? It felt too generous. I want to work, she said softly. Elijah studied her, really studied her, seeing the bruised dark circles beneath her eyes, the stiff way she held herself, the tremor in her fingers she tried to hide. But he nodded. Then come. Stay close. Learn what you can. Something like pride flickered in her chest. Fragile but real. She followed them out the door, sunlight warming her face. Her ribs still hurt. Her heart still ached. But for the first time in months, she wasn't bracing for the next blow. She was walking toward something. She didn't know what yet, but it felt like the start of a life she might someday earn. By late afternoon, the wind had sharpened into something that cut through clothing and memory alike. Lila followed Elijah and Jesse to the barn, her steps steadier than the day before but still uncertain. Every movement reminding her she was learning a life she'd never been given permission to want. Inside, warm dust drifted in thin ribbons, stirred by the horses shifting in their stalls. The scent of hay and leather wrapped around her. Earthy, honest, grounding. She reached out and touched the stall rail. The wood was warm, solid, unlike the saloon walls, which had always felt like cages pretending to be rooms. Elijah handed Jesse a brush. "Start with bramble." The boy nodded with the ease of someone raised in this barn. Elijah turned to Lila, offering her a second brush. She took it carefully, afraid to drop anything again. "You ever worked with horses?" he asked. She shook her head. "I saw them. That's all." He hummed quietly. Not disappointment, just acknowledgement. "Let's change that." He guided her toward the gentlest mare, a soft-eyed bay. "This is Willow. She's patient. She'll tell you if you're doing something wrong, but she won't spook you for it." Lila lifted her hand toward the mare's neck, fingers trembling. Willow sniffed her knuckles, warm breath spilling over her skin, and Lila's knees nearly gave out. "I don't want to hurt her," she whispered. "You won't," Elijah said. "Start slow. Follow her breathing." Breathing. She didn't realize she'd been holding hers until she tried to match the mare's steady rhythm. Her chest loosened by inches, not miles, but enough to make her eyes burn. She brushed Willow's neck in small strokes. The mare leaned into it. A simple thing. A gentle thing. Something Lila hadn't known she could offer. Behind her, Elijah said something to Jesse. Low, steady. She couldn't hear the words, but she could hear the warmth. Minutes folded quietly until Elijah stepped beside her. His presence filled the space without crowding it. "You're good with her," he murmured. She let out a shaky breath. "I'm trying. That's enough." The simplicity of it. Enough almost undid her. For a moment, Lila let herself believe she could belong here. But then Jesse piped up. "Elijah, tell her about the watch." Lila blinked. "Watch?" Elijah stilled. A subtle tension pulled at his jaw. "It's nothing." Jesse rolled his eyes. "He keeps it in his coat pocket and stares at it when he thinks nobody's looking." Lila glanced at Elijah's coat. Dark wool, worn at the edges. She'd seen his hand slip into that pocket more than once. "It belonged to your father?" A beat. Two. "Yes." His voice dropped deeper, heavy. "He gave it to me the night before everything changed." Lila waited. Not demanding, just present. Elijah rested a hand on the stall rail, fingers curling as if gripping something that wasn't there anymore. "My father worked for a white rancher outside Abilene," he began. "Honest work, hard work, but come payday, the rancher always found a reason to cut his wages." His breath thickened slightly. "One night, my father stood his ground, said he'd earned every cent, Lila felt the barn air tighten. Men don't like being told they're wrong, Elijah said quietly, especially by a black man. Her stomach turned cold. What did they do? She whispered. Elijah's jaw clenched. Beat him so bad he couldn't stand, all for the sake of $15. Heat flushed behind Lila's eyes. My mother tried to get a doctor, he said, but no one would ride out. Not for us. His voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. The restraint made it hurt worse. He died the next morning. Before he went, he pressed that silver watch into my hand and said, "Stand tall, son, even when they try to bend you." The words hung in the barn like a quiet bell. Lila swallowed. He sounds like a brave man. He was, Elijah said, but bravery doesn't stop a lynch mob or a crooked sheriff. A heavy silence settled, the kind that reached into your ribs and stayed there. What happened to your wife? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Elijah didn't flinch, didn't recoil, but his next breath came unsteady. She left, he murmured. Said she couldn't raise a child in a place that hated the man who fathered him. Jesse's brush slowed. The boy didn't look up. She left the territory, Elijah continued, went into labor on the road, didn't survive. Something fragile cracked inside Lila's chest. She didn't speak. Sorrow didn't need commentary. It needed room. Elijah looked away. Sheriff Avery didn't tell me for 3 days. Said he forgot. Forgot. That wasn't forgetting. That was cruelty with a polite coat of paint. Lila stepped closer. Not touching, just near enough that he could feel she wasn't shrinking from his story. I'm sorry, she whispered. Elijah nodded. Once. It's done. But the white-knuckled grip on the rail told her it wasn't. She understood that kind of pain. Unfinished, uninvited, always waiting in the dark. A cold gust slipped through a crack in the barn wall. Lila shivered. Without thinking, Elijah removed his coat and placed it over her shoulders. Not on her, but over her, letting her choose to pull it close. She did. It was warm, smelled like cedar, sweat, and something steady she couldn't name. Elijah, you didn't deserve any of that. His eyes lifted, dark, grounded, holding a pain she recognized because she carried its sister. Neither did you, he said. And for one long, quiet moment, the barn felt like a sanctuary built from shared wounds rather than shared walls. She didn't touch him. He didn't reach for her. But they stood closer than two broken people usually dared, each steadying themselves on the same invisible truth. They were tired of standing alone. The next morning came cold and gray, heavy as a judgment. Lila dressed slowly, each movement tugging at some bruise or pulled muscle she didn't remember earning. Her hands shook when she buttoned her shirt. She told herself it was the chill. It wasn't. Elijah had mentioned they needed flour and salt from town, and Jesse insisted on going along. Lila offered to stay back, but Elijah shook his head. You'll need to walk through Dusty Creek sooner or later, he said. Better not be alone when you do. His voice was gentle. The truth beneath it wasn't. Lila nodded, though her stomach tightened like a fist. Dusty Creek wasn't a place she feared for her life. It was a place she feared for her name. She climbed into the wagon beside Jesse. Elijah took the reins. As the ranch faded behind them, Lila's pulse thudded against her ribs. Not quick, not panicked, but heavy, like carrying something she couldn't set down. Jesse kicked his feet against the wooden rail. "You okay?" he asked. She forced a smile. "I'll manage." That mean no? Despite everything, a small breath of laughter escaped her. Maybe. Town crept into view. Boardwalks, swinging saloon doors, the general store, the church steeple that always seemed taller when it had something to look down on. As soon as Elijah stopped the wagon, voices quieted. Heads turned. Lila felt every stare like a finger pressing into a bruise. Her throat tightened until swallowing hurt. "Stay close," Elijah murmured. She didn't need reminding. Inside the general store, Mrs. Crowell stood behind the counter, hair pinned tight, mouth tighter. She looked up, eyes flicking from Elijah to Jesse to Lila. Her lips curled into a smile that wasn't a smile. "Well, if it isn't the Cedar Ridge Trio." Jesse stiffened. Elijah kept his shoulders relaxed, but Lila saw the tension ripple through him. Mrs. Crowell's gaze slid over Lila, slow, deliberate, stopping on the faded bruise along her jaw. "I see you brought company." Lila lowered her eyes. Shame prickled hot along her neck. "She's with us," Elijah said. Mrs. Crowell's brows lifted. "So I've heard." One woman giggled behind her hand. Another whispered, not quietly enough, "That saloon girl, Elijah Carter, must be desperate." Heat flooded Lila's cheeks. Her vision blurred at the edges. She forced herself to breathe. In, out. Don't fold. "Ma'am," Elijah said evenly, "we need flour, salt, and kerosene." Mrs. Crowell didn't move. Not right away. She let the silence stretch like a rope she meant to tighten. "Women like her usually prefer whiskey," she said sweetly. "I imagine she knows that saloon well." Lila's hands trembled. She dug her nails into her palms to steady them. Beside her, Elijah inhaled, slow, deep, controlled. She recognized that breath, the kind a man takes when anger could cost him everything. "Get the items," he said, voice low. Mrs. Crowell huffed, but turned. When she set the flour on the counter, she brushed it off with exaggerated disgust, as though Lila's presence alone had soiled it. Lila tried to focus on the floorboards, on the shelves, on anything but the eyes watching her. But the whispers found her anyway. Saloon trash. Hank probably had enough before Carter stepped in. No wonder she clings to a black man. Her chest constricted, breathing hurt. Her vision dipped. The floor tilted. She stumbled into a display of canned beans. Metal clattered. cracking through the room. Lila froze. Heat surged up her spine. She waited for yelling, for rough hands, for punishment. Elijah reached her first. "You're all right," he murmured. "Just breathe." His voice steadied her, but didn't erase the humiliation. Tears pricked her eyes. Hot. Unwanted. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong." But Town didn't care about right or wrong. Town cared about stories. The wrong ones. As they walked back to the wagon, Mrs. Crowell called after her. "Dusty Creek is a respectable place. Best if certain women remember their place." Lila stopped walking. Those words hit harder than Hank's fist. Her breath trembled. Shame, anger, hurt, tangled beneath her ribs. Elijah turned, eyes darkening. "Say it again." Mrs. Crowell's chin lifted. "I said." Elijah stepped forward, slow, deliberate. His voice stayed soft, but steel lined the edges. "What you're doing isn't respectable. It's cruelty dressed up as civility. You think whispers make you holy?" Gasps rippled across the boardwalk. A black man challenging a Crowell in broad daylight. "Elijah," Lila whispered, panicked. His shoulders eased. He stepped back, not out of fear, but out of protection for his ranch, for Jessie, for her. He helped Lila into the wagon. She didn't realize she was shaking until his hand steadied hers. They rode in silence for a mile before she spoke. "They'll never let me outrun what I used to be." Elijah kept his eyes on the road. "Then don't outrun it." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He reached into his coat and pulled out the silver watch. Surface worn, initials faint but visible. "Stand tall." "This watch kept my father alive longer than he should have lived," Elijah said. "He held on because he wanted me to remember something." He placed the watch gently in her hands. The metal was cool, heavy, alive with memory. "People will tell your story wrong on purpose," he said quietly. "Let them. What matters is the truth you live, not the one they whisper." Her throat tightened. "But it hurts." "I know." A single tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. "I'm tired of being someone's shame." He looked at her, really looked, until her breath caught. "You're not shame. You're someone who survived." The words didn't erase the pain, but they gave it shape. And that was something she hadn't had in a very long time. Elijah saw the dust long before he heard the shouting. From the porch, he stiffened, not like a man surprised, but like someone who had always expected trouble to find him eventually. Lila felt the shift in the air before she understood it. Jesse stepped outside with a half-carved piece of wood in his hands, eyes narrowing. Then the yelling hit. Horses, boots, men drunk enough to be brave, and mean enough to enjoy it. Lila's breath seized. Her palms went cold. She knew that rhythm. Men coming not to talk, but to take. Hank Rourke's voice rose above the others, thick with whiskey and rage. "Elijah Carter! Bring her out!" Elijah moved before fear could freeze Lila in place. He stepped off the porch, his body a wall between her and the gate. "Jesse," he said, without turning, "get inside." But Jesse didn't move. "We stick together," he muttered. Elijah shot him a look, the kind that said, "Not now," and the boy scurried back toward the door. Lila stayed rooted, breath sharp in her throat, watching as Hank and 4 other men pulled up in front of the ranch gate. Their horses snorted. Their guns hung loose at their hips, too casual to be harmless. Hank spat into the dirt. "I came for what's owed." Elijah didn't flinch. "Nothing's owed to you." Hank laughed, ugly and loud. "That girl owes me a night. You stole it." Lila's stomach twisted. Her fingers curled into the porch rail so hard the wood bit into her skin. "Leave," Elijah said. "Or what?" Hank leaned forward on his saddle. "You gonna shoot me? A black man firing on white folks? Sheriff'll hang you before sundown." The words hit harder than threats. Lila saw the truth of them land in Elijah's shoulders. Heavy, bitter, familiar. Hank swung off his horse and staggered toward the gate, boots crunching on gravel. The others fanned out, blocking the road behind him. "You hand her over," Hank said, voice slurred with alcohol and confidence. "Or I'll tear your damn fence down and take her myself." Elijah stepped forward. Not fast, not reckless, just present. "You cross that gate," he said, "and you're trespassing. And drunk or not, the law won't help you if you start something here." Hank grinned, showing broken teeth. "Law? In this territory?" He spread his arms wide. "The law picks the side that pays it." Behind Elijah, the door creaked open. Lila slipped onto the porch, unable to stay hidden. Elijah didn't look back. "Get inside," he said quietly. She shook her head. "I'm not letting them—" "Lila," he warned, voice low steel, but Hank had already seen her. "There she is," he crowed. "Little saloon flower. Bet you missed me." A wave of heat, shame, fear, fury crashed through her. Her nails dug into the rail until her knuckles screamed. "Don't speak to her," Elijah said. Hank's grin widened. "Why not? She belonged to you?" He spat at Elijah's boots. "Hell, everything about you is a joke. A black man playing house with white trash." The words lodged in Lila's chest like shards. Elijah didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Hank stepped closer. "Here's my offer, Carter. You give her back, and maybe I don't burn that barn of yours tonight." Jesse gasped from inside the doorway. Lila felt something cold snake through her spine. Elijah lowered his hands, slow, controlled. "Hank, go home." But Hank had come for spectacle. He wanted an audience. He wanted Elijah to snap. He shoved Elijah hard. Elijah staggered back a step. Lila's breath knotted, waiting for the explosion. It didn't come. Elijah straightened again, jaw locked, hands open. "Don't," Hank laughed. "Fight back." Elijah didn't. Hank punched him. A full swing, knuckles cracking against cheekbone. Elijah's head snapped sideways. Lila flinched like she was the one hit. Blood slid down Elijah's lip. He didn't touch it. Didn't wipe it away. "You done?" he asked quietly. Hank swung again. This time Elijah caught his wrist. He didn't twist, didn't break, just held. Hank tried to yank free. Couldn't. Panic flickered in his eyes. Elijah leaned in, voice barely above a whisper. "You leave now, or you face me sober." The threat wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. Men knew the difference between drunken courage and real danger. But before Hank could yank free, a voice rang out. "Enough!" Sheriff Avery thundered down the road, gun drawn, not to protect Elijah, but to protect the men who started this mess. The mob shifted. Some looked smug, some nervous. Avery reined in between them. "Elijah, let him go." Elijah released Hank instantly. Hank stumbled back, rubbing his wrist furiously. Avery shot a glance at Lila. Cold, judgmental. This all because of her? Lila's lungs froze. Elijah stepped forward. Rate 88%. "No, this is because Hank came drunk and looking for trouble." Avery turned to Hank. "You boys get home. Now." Hank sneered. "What about him? He assaulted me." "You hit him first!" Jesse yelled from the doorway. Avery ignored the boy. He always ignored the truth when it came from the wrong mouths. "Go home, Hank," Avery repeated. "Barrett doesn't want heat right now." The men exchanged looks. Barrett's name sobered them faster than the sheriff's badge. One by one, they mounted up. Hank lingered longest, pointing at Lila with a shaking finger. "This ain't over," he snarled. "You're both gonna pay for crossing the Crowells." Then he rode off. Dust settled, slow, heavy. Elijah wiped the blood from his lip with his thumb. Lila's eyes burned. "You shouldn't have stood there and let him," she whispered. "If I'd swung back," he said quietly, "none of us would be standing here now." She closed her eyes, because she knew he was right. That was the worst part. Jesse ran to Elijah. "Are you hurt?" Elijah put a hand on his shoulder. "No, son. Just tired." His voice cracked on that word. Tired. Lila stepped forward, heart pounding. "This happened because of me." "No," Elijah said, but she shook her head. "If I wasn't here, they wouldn't come." Elijah didn't answer that. Not with words. He just looked at her. Really looked. Until her knees went weak. And for the first time since she'd arrived at Cedar Ridge, she saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of Hank. Not fear of the sheriff. Fear of losing everything he was trying to hold together. And losing her. Lila didn't sleep that night. She didn't even lie down. She sat on the edge of the bunkhouse cot, with Elijah's coat draped around her shoulders, fingers twisted in the lining like she was holding on to a promise she didn't deserve. Every breath scraped her throat. Every blink brought back the image of Hank's fist smashing into Elijah's cheekbone. blood bright against dark skin, violence swallowed because the world gave Elijah no room to defend himself. And she knew, with a hollow, sinking certainty, that she was the reason he had to stand there and take it. By dawn, her decision was made, not out of courage, not out of hope, out of the raw, crushing fear that staying would destroy the only place that had ever offered her dignity. She folded the coat carefully and set it on the cot. Her hands shook so hard she nearly dropped it. She gathered her few belongings, shirt, comb, ribbon, and stepped out into the pale morning. Elijah's silhouette stood on the porch, not sitting, not pacing, just there. Like he'd been waiting all night for something he hoped wouldn't come. His eyes found her instantly. "You don't have to go," he said. Voice soft, too soft, like a man speaking through the ruins of something he couldn't name. Lila swallowed. Her throat burned. "I do." Jesse appeared behind him, hair sticking up, eyes wide with morning fear. "Why? Did we do something wrong?" "No," she whispered. "You did everything right." Elijah stepped down from the porch. Not fast, not demanding, just stepping toward her like every inch hurt. "This ranch isn't safe for you if they come back," she said. "And it's because of me they came at all." "No." Firmer now. But she shook her head. "Elijah, if they burn this place, it won't be my home that's gone. It'll be yours. Jesse's. Your father's memory. Everything you built." Elijah's jaw tightened, not with anger, with pain. A quiet, breaking pain. "You're not a burden, Lila." "Maybe not to you," she whispered, "but to the town. I'm the easiest excuse they'll ever get." She saw the truth flicker across his face, saw him fight it, saw him lose. He couldn't promise safety. Not here. Not with Barrett Crowell pulling strings. He looked away first, and that hurt more than anything Hank could have done. "Let me walk you to town," he murmured. She shook her head. "If you do, they'll say worse. They'll hurt you worse." Jesse's voice cracked. "Where will you go?" She forced a smile, sharp as splitting glass. "Somewhere quiet. Somewhere nobody knows me." A lie. But lies can be soft when the truth cuts too deep. Elijah opened his mouth, maybe to beg, maybe to argue, maybe to confess something he wasn't ready to say. But she stepped back. "Don't," she whispered. "If you ask me to stay, I will. And this ranch will pay the price." His breath stilled, and she walked away. Not because she wanted to, because loving this place already hurt enough without watching it burn. Dusty Creek was awake when she reached the church. Women streamed inside with baskets. Men stood around posts, whispering things they didn't bother lowering their voices for. She didn't make it 3 steps before Mrs. Crowell spotted her. "Well, isn't this a sight?" the woman said, smiling like a knife. "Did he finally send you back?" Lila froze. Rate 90%. He didn't send me anywhere, she said, voice small but steady. A cluster of women gathered. Men leaned in. Mrs. Crowell clicked her tongue. You think a rancher like Elijah Carter can keep a saloon girl on his porch without consequences? Especially a black one. You brought shame to his house. Heat flared along Lila's neck. Don't talk about him. Mrs. Crowell laughed. Why? Because he saved you? Honey, he didn't save you. He claimed you. Something in Lila snapped. A thin, trembling string pulled too tight for too long. She lifted her head, really lifted it, and met Mrs. Crowell's eyes. No, he didn't claim me. He respected me, which is more than anyone in this town ever did. A ripple passed through the crowd. Mrs. Crowell's smile faltered. Before she could answer, there he is. The crowd shifted. Elijah was walking down the road toward the church, shoulders squared, lip bruised, face carved with exhaustion. Jesse ran to keep up. Whispers erupted. Why's he here? Is he taking her back? Trouble's following them both. Mrs. Crowell stepped aside. Come to collect your stray? Elijah didn't look at her. He looked at Lila. And Lila, God help her, felt her chest cave in. He didn't reach for her, didn't demand she return. Just stood there, every inch carved from restraint and something that smelled like regret. If you don't want me, she said softly, I'll keep walking. His breath shook, barely, but she saw it. Mrs. Crowell seized the opening. Dusty Creek doesn't need her filth or your trouble. If you want respect in this town, you better get rid of her. That was it. The moment everything hinged on. The crowd leaned in. Jesse held his breath. Lila's heart hammered. Silence stretched, thin enough to tear. Elijah reached into his coat and pulled out the silver watch. Stand tall. He closed his fist around it, lifted his eyes to the crowd, and said, loud enough for the whole damn churchyard to hear, she's not my burden. Every whisper died. Then, steady as justice, she's my choice. Gasps tore through the onlookers. Lila's knees weakened. Elijah stepped to her side, not touching, not claiming, simply standing with her. You want to shame someone? He told the crowd. Start with the men who dragged a woman behind a saloon, not the woman who survived it. A hush fell, so deep even the wind stilled. Mrs. Crowell sputtered. You're making a fool of yourself. No, he said. I'm standing tall. Lila trembled, not from fear, but from something rising inside her. Something fierce, something alive. She stepped forward, facing the crowd head on. If you call him dirty for saving me, she said, then you're calling your own God dirty for lifting anyone out of the mud. Shock rippled across faces. Women looked away, men shifted, and for the first time in her life, Lila wasn't the smallest person in the room. She was the loudest truth in it. Elijah exhaled, something breaking loose in his chest, something old, something heavy. Beside them, Jesse slid his hand into Elijah's coat and whispered, "Rate 80%. Stand tall, Pa." Elijah didn't correct the title. The churchyard fell silent after Elijah said it. "She's my choice." Lila felt the words hit her harder than any blow she had ever taken. Her breath tangled in her chest. She hadn't expected rescue. Certainly not public claim. Not like that. Not from him. Mrs. Crowell stepped forward, her voice sharp as broken glass. "This is indecent. A man like you parading a saloon girl." Elijah didn't raise his voice. "Stop calling her that." The crowd muttered. Unsettled. Shifting. Lila trembled, exposed beneath 100 eyes. But something fierce flickered inside her. He wasn't hiding. He wasn't apologizing for standing beside her. The Reverend edged toward them, anxious eyes darting between angry townsfolk and the quiet rebellion forming in front of him. "Elijah, Lila, if you intend to stand together, the only respectable way, given the rumors, is marriage. Here, now." Gasps rippled. Mrs. Crowell smiled, thinking she'd cornered them. Elijah looked at Lila. In his eyes, she saw no pressure, only fear of losing her. "You don't owe me anything," he whispered. "Not a vow, not a life you didn't choose." Her throat tightened. Choice. He kept handing it to her, even when it cost him damn near everything. Lila stepped closer. "I won't marry because they demand it." A pause. "But I'll marry because I'm tired of being alone, and because you're the first man who ever let me choose." The crowd stilled. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. He offered his hand. She placed hers in it, trembling but certain. Widow Hattie Doyle pushed through the spectators and stood behind them. "Let them marry. They've shown more truth today than half this town." A few women joined her. The crowd split, clean down the middle. The Reverend cleared his throat. "Very well. We begin." The ceremony was brief, shaky. Lila's voice wavered. Elijah's steadied whenever hers failed. Jesse stood between them, gripping Elijah's coat like an anchor. When the Reverend finally nodded for them to seal the union, Elijah hesitated, waiting, as always, for her choice. Lila rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his cheek. Small, soft, hers. A hush fell. Mrs. Crowell hissed, "You'll regret this." But Elijah didn't look back, and Lila didn't bow her head. As they walked away from the church steps, Jesse slipped his small hand into Elijah's and whispered, just loud enough for the three of them, "Stand tall." And for the first time, Lila felt like she could. The wagon ride back to Cedar Ridge felt nothing like the one that had carried them into town. Lila sat between Elijah and Jesse, hands folded tight in her lap, the new weight of a simple band warm against her skin. She kept staring at it, half in disbelief, half in fear that she might wake and lose the only good thing she had chosen for herself. Jesse kept sneaking glances at her. At one point he whispered, "Does this mean we're a family?" The question punched air from her lungs. Elijah's fingers tightened on the reins. If she wants to be, he said softly. Lila's voice wavered. I want to try. Jesse smiled, small, crooked, the kind that hadn't visited his face often. When they reached the porch, Elijah helped her down. He didn't touch her waist, didn't pull her close. He simply offered his hand, letting her choose the distance. She took it, just for balance. But something inside her steadied too. After Jesse fell asleep on the settee, Elijah carried the boy to bed and returned to the porch where Lila waited beneath dim lantern light. She hugged herself, heart thumping unevenly. Elijah stood beside her, leaning on the rail, not touching, not crowding. You sure about today? He asked quietly. I didn't mean for it to happen that way. Lila let out a shaky breath. Nothing in my life ever happened the way I meant it to. She met his eyes. But this, I chose, even if I'm terrified. Elijah nodded, jaw tightening like he was holding something back. I was afraid too. She blinked. You? His voice dropped, husky, honest. Afraid I'd stay silent again. Afraid I'd lose you the same way I lost everything else, by not speaking when it mattered. Her chest tightened. She stepped closer, just one step. I walked away because I didn't want to ruin your life, she whispered. I never thought I'd be part of it. Elijah's breath shook. You're not ruining anything. You're the first good thing that's happened to this house in a long, long time. Wind stirred her hair. She swallowed hard. And what happens now? Elijah looked out over the dark fields, the ranch he'd bled for. We build slow. We learn each other. And I won't be silent again. Not with you. Something warm and trembling bloomed under her ribs. She reached up, hesitant, and touched his bruised cheek. Her thumb traced the tender edge. You took that hit because of me. Elijah shook his head gently. I took it because that was the only way to keep you safe. The lantern flickered. Her breath hitched. Elijah, can I? She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. He dipped his head. Just enough. Lila closed the distance and pressed her lips to his cheek. Slow, certain, softer than the kiss at the church. A choice. Her choice. Elijah exhaled like he'd been holding that breath for years. He touched the silver watch in his pocket, then met her gaze. No more running. Not you. Not me. And for the first time in her life, Lila believed it. For a few quiet weeks, Cedar Ridge felt almost like a life Lila had once dreamed of as a child. Warm breakfasts, steady chores, evenings where Elijah's voice hummed low while Jesse carved wood by the fire. A fragile peace. Too fragile. The first blow came on a Monday morning. A ranch hand from town rode up, face pale, apologetic. Elijah, Crowell pulled the lumber contract. Says he'll buy elsewhere. Elijah's jaw tightened. Did he say why? The man swallowed. Said he won't support a ranch that disgraces the town. His words, not mine. Lila felt the ground tilt. Elijah simply nodded, like a man who expected trouble long before it arrived. By the next week, 2 supply orders were canceled, then another. Whispered warnings drifted through travelers. Barrett was telling folks Elijah was dangerous, reckless, and compromised by that woman. That woman. Each word struck Lila like a lash. One evening, she found Elijah sitting at the table long after supper, head bowed over a stack of bills. Shoulders heavy, eyes tired in a way she'd never seen. "We'll manage," he murmured, but Lila heard the tremor beneath it. They wouldn't. Not like this. Her chest ached. "Elijah, this is because of me." He shook his head sharply. "This is because Barrett likes reminding people who owns this town, not you." Still, she saw the truth hiding in his silence. She looked at the stove, the flour, the apples, the tools her strength couldn't lift, but her hands could cook. "Let me help," she said. "You do," Elijah replied gently. "No," her voice firmed. "Let me help the ranch." He finally looked at her, and Lila, who'd spent half her life studying danger in men's faces, saw something else now. Time 300 and more. Pride. "What do you have in mind?" She drew a breath. "A kitchen. Here. Cowboys passing through need warm meals. Drivers need packed lunches. Miners need early breakfasts. Widow Hattie knows half the women in town. If I cook and she spreads the word, we could earn enough to buy time." Elijah opened his mouth, hesitation flickering, but she laid her hand over his, steady, intentional. "I don't want to sit here while you lose everything," she whispered. "Let me stand with you." Something softened, gentle, breaking, in Elijah's eyes. "All right," he said at last. "We try it. Together." The next week, Cedar Ridge smelled of fresh bread, beef stew, apple hand pies. Widow Hattie came first, then 2 ranchers, then a wagon team ordering 6 lunches. Money trickled in. Not much, but enough to steady the ground beneath their feet. One evening, Barrett Crowell himself rode up, boots polished, smile sharp as a blade. "Elijah," he called, eyes sliding over the busy porch, the smell of food, the line of customers. "Sell me your land. Start fresh somewhere people won't spit at your name." Elijah pulled the silver watch from his pocket, thumb brushing the faint letters. "Stand tall." Then he met Barrett's eyes. "No. This is where I stand." And Barrett's smile finally cracked. A full year passed, quiet as a sunrise. Cedar Ridge didn't become rich. It didn't need to. The ranch stood, lean but steady, because 3 people held it up together. On a late autumn afternoon, Lila stood on the porch, cradling a small baby girl against her chest. The child's tiny fist gripped her shirt, warm and soft, breathing little clouds against her skin. Jesse sat on the steps, carving a wooden horse, whistling off-key, proud of every crooked line. Elijah hammered the final nail into a wooden frame above the door. His shoulders, once weighed down by fear and loneliness, looked lighter now, broader, not in strength, but in peace. He glanced down at Lila, and warmth rose in her chest, the way it always did when his eyes found her. "You ready?" he asked. Lila nodded. Elijah opened his palm. Inside lay the silver watch, his father's watch. No longer ticking, chain worn thin, the engraving faded but unbroken. "Stand tall." "This kept me going when I didn't know where to stand," he said quietly. "Now it belongs here, to all of us." He hung the watch in the frame beneath the porch roof where sunset touched the metal with soft gold, like it had finally found rest. Jesse looked up, eyes shining. "Does that mean it's ours now?" Elijah ruffled his hair. "Means the lesson's ours, the standing's ours." Lila stepped closer, placing her free hand over Elijah's. "I used to think standing meant surviving what people did to me." Her voice cracked, but she didn't hide it. "But now, it means standing with someone, beside someone." Elijah's fingers tightened gently. "And never alone again." Behind them, their daughter cooed. Jesse leaned against Lila's arm, wooden horse half finished in his hand. And for a long, warm moment, the four of them simply existed beneath that porch. No fear, no shame, just the quiet truth that they had built something whole from the ruins of their livas. Elijah looked at the watch one more time and whispered, "Pa, we're standing tall now." And Lila knew it wasn't just a ranch anymore. It was home. Thank you for staying with this story until the very end. Elijah, Lila, Jesse, and their little girl remind us of something many of us learned long ago. That life doesn't always give us easy roads, but love, dignity, and simple kindness can still build a place worth calling home. Cedar Ridge isn't perfect, just like the world we live in. Yet somehow it stands tall because the people inside it chose courage over fear and compassion over judgment. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you of old values or the strength it takes to hold a family together, I'd truly love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voices, your memories, and your wisdom mean more than you know. If you enjoyed the journey, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next Western tale. We release new stories regularly, each one crafted with care for listeners who appreciate heart, history, and the reminder that hope can bloom anywhere. Thank you, truly, for being here. May your days be peaceful and your nights gentle.